Alright, I shot this video at least 2 or 3 times before doing this because the first couple attempts I wasn't happy about it, and I meant to get this video out way earlier because it's a Halloween video, but I'm operating under the Ross Scott motto of,
or if you're watching this after Halloween, it's more of a state of mind anyway. Especially when you hide in the bushes at night wearing a costume and jump out at people. Every night is Halloween then.
And I just want to talk about Supernatural a bit because the series finally wrapped up and I have a lot of thoughts about how things went, but I really just want to talk about 2 episodes I like the most that I think kind of exemplify what Supernatural is all about. I'm not going to talk about necessarily what I think is the scariest episode, because if I had to talk about that, it would probably be the Benders, because out of the whole planet and universe of Supernatural, where demons, vampires, and the like walk among us, the scariest thing in that show is psychotic humans.
You killed my brother.
Your brother? Now I see.
Just tell me why.
Because it's fun.
But the crazy and scary monsters are also really good too. I want to get something out of the way right now that I don't think I've ever talked about, and that's that I'm not really a fantasy guy at heart. I like sci-fi, I like Halo, which you can't see here very well because it's kind of dim, but I do like some fantasy, and there's some things that I read out of obligation more so than anything else. Like, the only reason I read The Witcher is because there was a television show and several video games about it, and I like the show a decent little bit. The only reason I'm reading Sojourn is because I watched entirely too much Razor Fist, and his video about top 5 comics got to me. The only reason I'm going to read the Lord of the Rings trilogy and The Hobbit and the Silmarillion is because Tolkien is like a fiction god, basically. So I feel like I'm morally and legally obligated to do so as someone who also wants to become a published author at some point in his life. But fantasy, by and large, has never been my genre. I can appreciate authors like Neil Gaiman and, but the reason I like someone like Gaiman isn't necessarily because it's fantasy, it's because I like how he incorporates the supernatural and the mystical into the world, because some intrepid hero going into a dungeon and killing a dragon on some far and away planet in a far and away fake country, not everything is great. That's just not what I'm into. But a story like Neverwhere, in which there's an entire realm that is hidden inside of the London metro system, is just fascinating to me. I love something like that. Or American Gods, where the gods of every immigrant that came to America that brought their worship with them, then forgot them, having left all these different deities just kind of adrift in a country that doesn't believe in them anymore. And that's what I mean getting into the new gods that are coming up, like the god of the internet, god of television, all that stuff. That's the kind of stuff I like. So something like Supernatural really tickles that special part of my brain that loves that stuff. I'm not going to go too deep into the episodes themselves because they need to be watched to really fully be enjoyed, I think. But my 2 favorite episodes out of over a dozen seasons, out of hundreds of episodes, thousands of monsters probably, is without question the Wendigo and the Scarecrow in the Orchard. I'll just give a brief overview of what each monster is, right? So a Wendigo, for the uninitiated, is this super-powered cannibalistic monster that ate human flesh and gained ungodly power because of it. It has near immortality. It's really hard to kill unless you're lucky. It's smarter than you, which would make you extremely worried. And my favorite thing about it is that it's based off a monster from Native American lore and mythology, and I love it. The fact that it's such a simple premise as, you know, a couple of campers are lost in the woods, Sam and Dean are helping them out, and they find out that the thing they're going up against is this cannibalistic beast that knows how to imitate human speech and is smarter than any of them and is able to get the drop on them so easily is just so... I love it. Everything about that setup is just brilliant. And I think one of the biggest reasons I like that episode is that we don't see a lot of the monster itself. We know it's supposed to look humanoid in nature, but because of ingesting human flesh, it only looks semi-humanoid and kind of corrupted. And the fact that it doesn't have a voice of its own, but it can imitate other people's voices. Makes me think of the Terminator, except this is scarier because I know it's not a machine. It doesn't have to exist because of certain environmental or location or anything like that, right? It just exists because some people get desperate, eat human meat, and just gain power from it, and then it turns them then. And on the other side of that, we have the Scarecrow, which kind of harkens back to that whole American gods thing where immigrants brought over the idols and deities of their own worship there. But instead of forgetting about them and going to more mainstream gods, or even new gods in some cases, they kept worshiping it. And all this thing is just, it's from a nondescript pagan religion, and all it does is make sure that the inhabitants of this town in the Midwest is sustained and cared for. Because it's kind of off the beaten path, so they don't really get a lot of people sometimes. And so their lives and the general economy of the town, which is causing them to go bankrupt, is failing. So they pray to this pagan deity that takes the form of a scarecrow in an apple orchard and ask it to bring them life back into the town. And it obliges, but only on the condition of blood sacrifice. Of course, Sam and Dean figure out how to beat it, and it dies horribly, and one more monster is ganked for the ages. Great stuff. If I have to say it point blank, I would say that while these stories and setups are fairly simple, I think that they're ultimately better stories than a lot of the later story arcs because it doesn't rely on anything more than just sheer atmosphere, a simple set of rules and standards, and just Sam and Dean trying to figure out in time. But what I like about these two episodes in particular is that it really does go back to that pockets of weird and magic in an otherwise realistic world. Like, on the last couple times I've driven to Idaho to go visit some family out there, there's quite a large stretch of Interstate 80 going through northern Nevada where I look out there and I wonder, what's going on? Like, what kind of things are out there? Because maybe I'm just paranoid, but I feel like I'm being watched, especially in a state like Nevada, which is kind of just Mad Max Simulator 2K forever. It's even worse when you're the only person on a very long stretch of road. Like, maybe I sound completely insane saying something like this, but I often wonder if there's actually any immortals walking among us like in Highlander, and we just wouldn't know it because they're good at hiding, and also, how do you test for something like that? It's so far off the reservation, you can't account for it. And if the last year has taught me anything, it's that you cannot always account for everything. And sometimes you'll just get curveballs because no other reason more than screw you. I think this might be the reason I like something like the first Fantastic Beasts movie more than I did like any Harry Potter, because Hogwarts being like protected by some magical shield that shields it from muggles' thoughts or whatever. Okay, that doesn't make any sense to me because I just feel like there's too much up in the air and it's a very soft system for getting stuff done. But something like Fantastic Beasts, where it's still the same soft magic system, to borrow a term from Shadiversity, it still feels more in line with something I can get behind, because if someone told me that there's not just a portal, but several portals to a hidden magical realm, all within New York City, I would believe it, because quite frankly, a lot of cities are freaking weird. And that's what I loved about a lot of the early episodes of Supernatural. Yeah, there was a serialized plot going on, but it never quite felt like it had to be, the world is ending, we must stop Armageddon. Again! All it was there's a monster out in those hills, we're gonna find it, we're gonna kill it, and we're gonna save as many people as possible while doing it. And I love that vibe that original OG Supernatural gave out. And I think that when a lot of people talk about or think about Supernatural, they don't necessarily think about anything past season 6 so much. They think about those first 5 seasons where, yeah, it evolved into a Chosen One story arc that brought about the Judeo-Christian apocalypse and all that. And that's fine, but I think when most people think Supernatural, they think of those first 5 seasons. But when they're thinking of those first 5 seasons, they're actually thinking about those first 2 seasons, where, as Eric Kripke wrote in his original treatment for it, it was the X-Files meets Route 66. 2 brothers in a Chevy Impala, killing monsters of the night and making sure that they don't kill other people. That's what Supernatural's all about. And I think that's what the Wendigo and Scarecrow episodes really exemplify the most about the series. And one of my favorite aspects about just what I'm going to call American horror, I guess. Like I said, are they the scariest episodes? No. I would say that they're probably in the top 10. However, I don't think that they're the scariest episode out of the entire series, and that's a long list to make right there. I know it's January right now as I shoot and edit this video and everything, but for future reference, if you need something to watch on Halloween, Supernatural is always a good choice, but if you need any episodes in particular, my recommendations would definitely be the Wendigo and the Scarecrow. They're fantastic, I can't recommend them enough, and they're absolutely my favorite episodes out of the entire series. With that, happy Halloween, happy New Year, and I'm Danny Movie Man. Have a good day.